one of the first questions I think is going to be very helpful is just to share a little bit more about what happened to your property, share a little bit more about the experience you had there.
I'm Miguel and this is Melanie, and we're both homeowners here in Jefferson Park. We had a house fire that originated in our garage that took out our garage and carport and actually spread up the side of the house and affected our second story. And what that looked like in the recovery process is the backyard was a total loss. The garage and carport, total loss, had to be rebuilt, and they gutted our entire second floor down to the studs, as well as took out the roof because all that needed to be replaced due to smoke and fire damage. Our house is historic. It is a part of the Historic Preservation Overlay Zone, and all of that was a conversation with our insurance adjuster.
Yeah, so I think insurance is a really big question mark right now that we're hearing. So what was the first step in you making the insurance claim? Of course, that was the first step, and what's the process with the insurance as you worked on even finding temporary housing, permanent housing while the repairs are being done?
Yeah, so I mean, step one is like we worked with our insurance agent to really kind of get us familiar with our policy and the ins and outs of that, because it's not something that, you know, a lot of people really know. So, you know, we worked with her, we got familiar with our policy, and then, you know, went really into like finding temporary housing. One thing that was unique with our insurance company is that they would only allow us to sign a 6-month lease, which was very hard to get a landlord to give us a 6-month lease. Actually, we couldn't find one that would. So what we did is your insurance will allow a certain amount of money per month for you to rent a place for a certain amount of time. And we just asked the landlord, we gave them a little extra money each month to allow for a shorter term lease, and we were able to go kind of work around it that way. Our insurance company would only pay for us to be in a rental for 2 years. Our house fire happened in 2019. Shortly thereafter, there was COVID. So right when we were trying to get our permits with the city, it closed down. So the whole process took 2.5 years for us to get back in our home. So for a 6-month period, we were paying mortgage and we were paying rent. And there was no flexibility with that. I said, we're in a pandemic, and they didn't care. It was what it was, and there was no flexibility with that.
With your mortgage, were you able to pause your mortgage, defer it, or what was the situation with your mortgage where you could at least have some alleviation during the season?
Yeah, there was an opportunity for us to pause paying the mortgage payments, but it's kind of similar to the relief they gave you during COVID. Is like, it's paused, but you're going to have to pay that at a certain point, right? So we didn't opt for that. You know, it could be an option for some mortgage companies that would provide that flexibility. It's just something that we didn't need to take advantage of, because obviously we knew at some point we would have to make those payments up and have to come up with the money somehow. So we didn't do that, but it is an option.
I think, you know, being in the historic area with insurance, I'm sure that also caused maybe some challenges to work through, or at least some very specific items that really were just related to historic properties, because I think insurance companies probably don't have that full knowledge about what that means. How were you able to navigate that? Did you have to bring certain specialist parties involved? Was your contractor very well versed in historic properties, or any insight on that part?
The nature of like rebuilding historic property, you really have like a couple considerations. Normal policy, they are replacing like for like. So assume you had a wood and drywall wall, they're going to replace it with wood and drywall. Now, the wood that you had might have been historic and decades old, but that kind of wood, they're not going to be able to find, source, and replace based on what your policy will pay for, right? So in those regards, you do kind of have to make concessions and say, look, I understand these portions of the house contained historic materials that are now lost. However, to get approved by the city, you have to replace the house as it looked, okay? Now, as I explained, the damage to our house was not street facing, so we got a lot of grace there because the, we had a little bit more flexibility in fixing the house back to its original position or original look without changing the front face of the house. I think that all would have been a lot different if the front face was affected. That is a conversation that you have to have with both the adjuster and the contractor to make sure that they're going to provide those things within the scope of the project. And that may mean that the insurance does accommodate a little bit more money to ensure that that look is preserved, so that your house, whatever level of historic charm that it has recognized by the HPAS is restored to that per your discretion. And then the last thing I'll say is we did work with a specialist specifically on our windows because that kind of window just isn't sold by like your typical, I guess like big box store. You don't go to like Home Depot and buy, double,
The vinyl ones? Yeah.
Yeah. So like, the type of windows that we had were like your classic wood windows that would slide, both, the name is completely escaping me, but they're weighted on the sides. And due to the smoke damage, we worked out with insurance to get specific bucket of money like put towards that, and we hired a specialist to do the windows because, the smoke would have affected the cords on the insides, the moldings, and then the paint and whatnot. So that, and in some cases damaged some windows, and we had to do a full replacement. So he kind of spearheaded all of the historic window repair, and that was something specific we had to like go out of our way to get done for our house.
Yeah, we also had historic built-ins that also suffered water damage, a separate claim related to the fire that happened like a year after. So we also had to take care in putting those built-ins back together and making sure that they looked as close to the historic. So we used a lot of the same materials and stuff like that. So we were consulting with our insurance company and our contractors to make sure that went back together the right way. I would say if you are in a neighborhood that has an HPAS board, consult early and often with them because you don't want your project getting held up with them as well as the city.
Yeah, a reminder that you have the HPAS board, and if it's a fire repair damage, you're replacing to put it back the way it was, you shouldn't have to go through a board approval process. You're just working with the city. So there's the neighborhood board, and then there's the city kind of historic supervisor that needs to bless up on your project plans. That person you want to start having a relationship with and a conversation so that they understand what you want to do, and that everything's copacetic with the plans as you understand it and the restoration that everybody agrees to pay for scope-wise. And then the last thing I'll say is just make sure that you have that conversation with your contractor, that they understand this is a historic property and that you want to retain the historic charm. We did have the situation where when they recognized the water damage, they started doing their own work, which was they decided on their own to start tearing out our built-ins, to which I walked in on, and I had them immediately stop work and explain what was going on because that was not part of the scope as I understood it, and I just watched in horror as they tore apart this part of the house that we loved as part of the historic charm. So definitely make sure everybody's on board with this is a historic home and we have to treat it differently, and everything needs to go through an approval process that the homeowner should be aware of.
I think another thing would be, what are things that you think are helpful for people to know and have gone through it right now?
I think the initial wave of support and help that you get from your community and friends and family For us, we were overwhelmed with the level of support. We actually had to start turning donations away, which is what you kind of see throughout the city now. This is something that is going to take a lot of time to repair. I think long haul, like 2 to 5 years, maybe more, before these people get back in their homes. And I would say just stay present with them, check in with them. I think things that were helpful for us, like 6 months after the fact, were like childcare, offer to watch their kids while they're meeting with a contractor or going to, you know, a store, a hardware store or something. Like that ongoing support was super helpful. And just like checking in on their mental health, asking if they want to go get coffee or, you know, dinner, you know, 6 months from now, a year from now, ask if they need anything, keep checking in with them. Because right now they're just overwhelmed and they're in shock, and they're probably in a hotel and cannot take anything else. So I would just say pause maybe for right now, and then look at 6 months from now and a year from now and see what else they need as support.
Yeah, the other thing I would say is, like, you know, it kind of affects the whole person. So, you know, definitely check in on yourself and make sure that you're doing well. You know, inform your employer, because that is going to really affect your work schedule. There are so many calls and considerations in the immediate, and then as work is being done, you're going to need time to like check in progress reports, you know, 25%, 50%, certainly whenever there's like inspections and whatnot from the city. You really want to make sure you pass those so that your progress keeps going towards the goal of getting everything done within that amount of time. For us, it was 2 years. And then, you know, like Melanie said, you really do have to have that long haul mentality in the immediate. Yes, people need, you know, things, necessities right away, but there is continuing and ongoing support that's needed to that family, because they're still going to have moments where they need to move out of their rental and move into the new house. They need time to receive all of their new goods, and it's almost, you just moved. You're getting everything that you got as a replacement, and now you're getting everything that you've been parted with for 2 years, you know, soft goods, hard goods. It's kind of like Christmas again. You're opening all the stuff that you forgot you had. And then of course it's like you're moving back into a new house. You know, you may need to put up pictures and do all this stuff. There is so much time and effort and energy that needs to be put towards this. And to that end, you know, just your own mental state going through it. I'll say by the time we were done with that, any house project that came up years afterwards, I was just mentally drained. I did not want to deal with any contractors after that. I just said, forget about it, we'll fix it later, because I just don't even want to deal with them. Because it is all that, you know, it's like you get that call from the contractor, okay, what tile is it? Oh God, I didn't know you were doing that today. Let me redirect my effort and figure that out. It's a lot of work, and it's, you know, it's just, you're in that mentality, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel when you're finally in your home and settling in and whatnot. But even then, there's that shakedown period of, okay, this paint wasn't done right, or I see these cracks in this wall, and you still got to deal with the contractors even after the fact. So yeah, it's just really making sure that you understand this is a huge event, and it's going to take a huge effort to come back from it.
I would just say, like, take care of your mental health. Your employer may offer EAP benefits where you can see a therapist for a period of time. You know, check in with yourself, and you can't help anybody else until you take care of yourself, and that includes your children. So, you know, get the therapy, or, you know, get whatever support that you need. And get some tools and coping skills that can help you through this. Like for us, like I still have PTSD over the fire. Like the fires have brought out a lot of trauma that is still with me, and quite frankly, may be with me for the rest of my life, but it's just having those coping skills and being able to work through it is what's really important. And you need to be there for your family and your children. So just take care of yourself.
So some positive benefits that we got out of this, we really built our community because we had to receive help. We really had to just become humble to ask for and receive that help. That help came from such amazing, far-reaching places, people we didn't even know, that it was truly inspiring to see. You know, our neighbor across the way housed us for that initial night. The person that we rented the house from, where we lived there, we made great friends with all of our neighbors there. We saw a different side of our community, you know, our neighborhood that we didn't necessarily know was there. And then, you know, just working with the contractors, we learned a lot about our house. We have an appreciation for kind of the process and why things do go through the vetting process that they do when it comes to plans and architecture. And then, like I said, we got to make the house, put a lot of personal touches in there that really made it our own, so that, you know, moving back into it, it gave us that comfort and feel of this place is better the second time around.